I've been sleeping with my hood on, so my hair is kind of a mess, which is why I still have it on. More of a mess than usual, I would say. Okay, so now it is week 8, day 2, and this video is for Last Culpurter Friday, week 7, day 5. Um, and that was just another powerful day. We started off with worship. Okay, so Calvin was back from Africa and he shared this worship called 30 Minutes with God and Youth Rush, or 30 Minutes Devotional, with something like that. And then we went over Mark chapter 4. And then, so what you're going to do is you're going to read the whole chapter through. You're going to pick a section, a parable, or a few verses to focus on. You're going to reread it. And then you're going to read it a third time, but this time you're going to use all of your senses. So for like the parable of the sower, imagine the sun, the weeds, or this and the thorns springing up, the seed that fell on the road, the bird swooping in to catch it, the heat, the smell, the taste, the hardness of the ground. So you're using all of your senses to imagine these stories, and then you're going into detail. So, like in the end of that chapter, talking about Jesus, how he calmed the storm, he was in a two-story boat because he was sleeping underneath, and which means, and he didn't wake up yet. So, which means even though the water was splashing around, it hadn't gotten enough into the boat for it to wake him. And then the toss of the turn of it also didn't wake him. And so things like that are like, okay, so I thought it was a small boat. How big is this boat actually if it has the two stories, you know? Um, Things like that. And then so I was focusing on, and it was such a powerful devotional. I was focusing on the stormy part. And then what I learned was God rebuked the wind first, before he rebuked the disciples. Calm, be still, and then he's like, "Oh, you have little faith." And I think sometimes in the middle of the storm, we have a tendency to try to teach people to say, "Okay, this is what you're gonna do. Like, how can you not hold on to God? How can you do this, that, that?" Um, but turmoil is still going on. But there are times when we're supposed to deal with the situation first and then afterwards talk to the people and make it a teachable moment. And also, another thing that I learned is not to worry about things outside of your control. Like, you can shovel the buckets, you can try to keep the boat afloat, but the storm itself is not your concern. That is in God's hand. Because, like, as the disciples, they couldn't do anything about the storm other than pray to God, other than wake Jesus up. But like they could try to keep the boat afloat in terms of steering and doing all these things within the boat that was within their control, but the storm itself is outside of your control. And then so there are also things in life where like you try your best, you do your part to make a situation better, but the overall situation itself is in God's hand. And we can have peace because we don't have to worry about that bigger picture, and that's just God. And then going forward, it's the Mark is the scribe of Peter, so it should actually be Matthew, Peter, Luke, John. You know, um, he is the scribe of Peter, and then so he has all these intimate stories that are actually about Peter, and then the focus of Mark is on the miracles of God. He doesn't go over the genealogy or any of that. His focus is his ministry, his miracles, and then he goes from uh what do you call this? He goes faith test, faith test. So first the parable um of the sower, let your light shine, the parable of the growing seed, the parable of Lansam, and then the um that was the let your light shine one. And then so all these parables about just do your work faithfully and then let God worry about the rest. And then you have the storm to test them, and then you have the next chapter, you have the demoniac, the unclean woman, the dead girl, and then afterwards you have the test, and then you have the feeding of the 5,000, feeding of the 4,000, and then when he says, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees," and then you're like, "Oh, it's because we only bread one loaf of bread." And it's like, I showed you the faith that I could feed the 5,000 and the 4,000. So, like, it's not, the one loaf is not a concern. And so it was like faith test, faith test. But something that he pointed out about Matthew chapter 5 with the demoniac, the woman with the bleeding issue, and the Cyrus's daughter, was they were all unclean. If you're dead, you're unclean. If you have a bleeding issue, you're unclean. If you're a demoniac, you're unclean. And then God cleansed them. And the woman, it's the only account that Jesus ever calls someone daughter. And this is important because as being unclean, you are rejected from society. You have no family. You've cut all ties. And then she's had this issue for so long. And then it says to be called daughter, because that's what she needed. She needed a family and that acceptance. And then so he calls her daughter, and that is the only account that Jesus ever calls someone daughter. And that to me is so powerful, how Jesus ministers to us, not just for physical needs, but according to what we need, even as something as simple as calling someone daughter, because she didn't have a father, but she could have a heavenly father through God, and a family in Christ. And so that was just so powerful. We went out in the field, and then I was like, oh, if yesterday was about faith, or today's the test day, because it was just such a powerful day. But it ended up being another powerful day, and I almost missed out on seeing the miracles. Here's why. It was our last day in territory. We were moving to, at that point, we were about to move to Simi Valley. And then so we were doing, East LA, Southgate. I forget what the other territory was. But we were doing these territories, and this was going to be our last day in them. And I was like, Lord, powerful experience, dump bags all around, books going out, because this is, we're moving on. They're not going to see us for another year. And then so I just really wanted to push hard. And so I was really pushing in the morning, and then we took a break for lunch. And then we met up with the whole program. So we met up with Calvin's van, with Ella's van. I was in CJ's van, and then so we had all lunch together at this. I want to say it was Taco Bell or Del Taco. I don't remember which of those. And across from it was actually the gas station I had canvassed at yesterday, where I got the Eroes out, my last Spanish book out. And then so I was like, oh Lord, just like, because it's 7:47, it's almost short time. And then I overheard them making plans for us to work together in the afternoon, and then we set a 200 book total. And then I asked Ella, like, how like what's our numbers usually for a program. And then she was like, oh, like 150 to 200. So I was like, okay, so it's like 200 is like the higher end of things. Okay, so I was like, okay, 200 is a good goal. But in my mind, I was like, I wanted it to be extraordinary. Like, I wanted to push past 200, and I really wanted to go hard the whole day. And then I was like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. And then so we're all on channel 1, and then all the leaders are in one van. Like, they drop us all off, and then they're all there, and then they're like, okay, pick up locations, drop off, and all these things. And so they were working with us. And then so it was really interesting to see 4 leaders in one van. Oh, and then so I got dropped off, and then you hear over the radio people who aren't in your van, calling out books. And then it got to a point where it was like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. No one is calling out a book. And then, or maybe it wasn't that long, but in my mind it was. I'll be honest. And then it's like, God, this is our whole program. I mean, if it's your van who isn't getting out books, you can still say that, like, oh, at least the other vans are getting, somewhere they're working and they're getting out books. But it's like, this is our whole program. This is everything we have to offer, and we're not getting books out. And then by lunchtime, we had only gotten 48 books out. And then so we were working, and it's like, okay, 70, okay, we're at 80, we're at 90. And then it was like 30 minutes left, and I think we were at 105. Or like within the last hour when we were 105, I'm like, we still have to get 100. It's like, okay, that's just like, that's 10 dump bags. And I was like, okay, that's 10 dump bags. And then even though like you think, oh, like, oh, 10 dump bags, that's crazy. It's not. Like, in God's hands, like, that is so easy. Just 10 people, almost our whole program, meet somebody who's willing to get all of these books, who wants to help out, who's eager for the Lord. And I'm like, we're still knocking on hundreds of doors. That's easy in my mind. I'm like, Lord, give us more. And so I was really expecting these like big things to happen in territory last night. And then we ended the night with, I think, like something like 138 books, something like that. And then I was like, wait, Lord, what happened? Like, we were supposed to get at least 200. And I sincerely believed it. And I was like, oh, really? Like, this is our last day in territory. And I was so disappointed because sometimes, like, you have a bad day, or events have a bad day. But this is our whole program already. And I was so disappointed um, about that we didn't get it out. And then it went back, and then so I was kind of like brooding. Well, okay, I wasn't brooding, but I was disappointed. Um and then it's like something like, if you have faith, you can move mountains, all this. I'm like, I had faith. I totally believed it. I was, sold on the goal. And then I was like, oh, Lord, like, why? If you ask according to his will, you'll get it. Or he'll answer your prayers. But it's like, isn't it according to your will that 200 books go out? And it goes back to like, people have free will. I might have been ready to get a book out, but the person I'm talking to might not be ready to receive it. And then there's this quote, um, which, okay, had been coming up day after day this week, but I didn't think about it at that moment. And then looking back, how important this quote is. It says, do not you don't be focused on your seeming success. So for me, that might be top sheets or getting that 200 book goal. Don't be concerned about your seeming success, because as canvassers and evangelists, we do not know the full effect of faithful effort. And what I put out there on Colporteur Friday was faithful effort. I pushed hard, and I'm sure the whole team pushed hard. And then so we don't know the effect of faithful effort. We don't know the effect of the glow tracks. We don't know the effect of the drop downs. We don't know the effect of the mega books. And so it's just powerful. 138 books went out. That's either multiple books in one home, or 138 people, but 138 books still went out on Colporteur Friday, our last day in territory. And we don't know the full effect of that. There were personal Bible studies. I don't know the stories of people and their experiences at the door. Okay, I have like 7 minutes, and I'm pretty sure people are gonna come in early, so I'm gonna try to finish up as fast as I can. Um, and so, and then like earlier that, and then looking back, I now realize that so many things happen that weren't supposed to happen, but God's working was in there. So I was doing businesses in the morning, the strip, where it was. I was just like going along the street, but there was another plaza behind one of the businesses I was doing, channeled up CJ, said, hey, can I do it? He's like, yeah, go ahead. Okay, so yeah, other people are here. I'll pause the video and talk to you guys later. Bye.